Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. And today we're having my weekly reading wrap up go up just a little bit later. I had a birthday party yesterday that kind of took up my whole day because there was travel and so I didn't get to film it. But that was actually good because I was able to finish up some books that I really wanted to talk about this week and not wait till next week to do. So I'm pretty happy that I waited. First off, we're going to get started talking about one book that was part of my Mafia readathon read. This one was The Last Boss's Daughter by Sam Mariano. So this book was okay. It's not what I'm used to seeing from Sam Mariano, neither with how her hero is or just kind of what the plot was. There's this girl who's kind of been forced into a marriage. She's been raised in the mafia life her whole life and is just kind of miserable with all of it. And so she's living with this guy that she's supposedly married to, but she didn't agree to this marriage. She didn't sign a certificate. They've just basically said, this is your husband. And then there is this hitman who's kind of keeping an eye on her because there's some trouble that she's getting into. And then eventually, you know, this is a retelling of Snow White, if you kind of get that vibe from the cover, and he ends up taking her to keep her safe and like keeping her in a cabin in the woods. And I don't know, this book, I can't remember exactly when this one came out, but I think this was a bit of an older one for her. It didn't have her mafia vibes or her other dark romance vibes, and so I wasn't totally feeling it, but I thought it was pretty unique story. So I gave it a 4. Is it completely a 4? Maybe not, but I was feeling a little generous because I also did skim some of it. So I don't know. We're giving it a 4. But there definitely is better fare by Sam Mariano for you to check. Then I read Barbarian's Mate by Ruby Dixon. This is book 7 or 8. And yes, I was already, you know, you guys know this. I've already been reading Ice Plated Barbarians. I think it's hilarious that it's getting the attention that it is from TikTok right now, which is just great. I mean, I'm glad it's getting its second win, but it's funny to see conversations that like we've been having on Booktube and Bookstagram for years like pop up on TikTok. It kind of makes me laugh. And I hope that it leads people down a whole wonderful rabbit hole of awesomeness. Like, I have a friend who's really not in the book community anymore. She used to be, and but she's really like watches TikTok a lot, and so these books that come up to her, I'll just laugh and I'll be like, girl, that happened so long ago. Like, that was so long ago, but for her it's fresh, and I love that that's happening for Ruby Dixon, so I'm definitely not going to naysay it. But anyway, sidetrack. I'm still making my way through the series. I already have been, you guys know, but I kind of take them one at a time. I read them as like fluff books in between other things, and I say that with respect, but they're not usually going to like a deeper level that some of the dark romances I read do, and that is okay. We need those books that just buoy our spirit and make us laugh and smile, and that's something that Barbarians made, like the Ice Plated Barbarians do for me. However, Barbarian's Mate I really struggled with. I really did, because our heroine is Josie and the hero is Hayden, and they have a serious hate relationship. But see, for the IPB, when they resonate with someone, like, that's the most important thing. They found their mate. And Josie, she's been wanting a mate this whole time, and finally her IUD falls out, which you only resonate with someone when you are able to have children. So she isn't fertile before her IUD falls out in the eyes of her queen or whatever. And so when she resonates with Hayden, she wants to reject it. And so for me, I feel like her reasons for wanting to reject him just were pretty feeble. And it was very frustrating to see her make herself so sick and to cause him pain when she's like, we don't even know each other. And I was like, Josie, You haven't tried to get to know him. You've hidden the whole time. And it was getting really frustrating. It did have a good turnaround for me at the end, but these are pretty short books, and there was a long portion of this where I was just really frustrated with Josie. And like, I don't want to be frustrated with our characters for that long. Like, I don't want to be upset with a fictional character. Like, it's draining, okay? I don't got time for it. But I did still end up getting it 4 stars because it pulled it around in the end. And again, I have different expectations for these books than I have for some others. That's just how it is. I don't have to explain myself. If you're reading IPB, you're going to keep reading IPB, right? And if you have read 1 or 2 and you don't think it's for you, then you're not going to get there. But I will continue to read 1 or 2 of these a month and just make my way through them. Then I got to read an arc of Perfect Sinner by Maggie Cole. Maggie Cole continues to spoil me and be one of the sweetest people ever, and she sent me an arc of, I believe this is the 7th one in the series. This is one of the O'Malley books, and this one is about Nolan, and I forgot her name. I'm sorry. There's a lot of books. But this is the sister of the heroine from the last book, so it's Haley's sister. And it's tough to talk about these. This book isn't coming out until, let's see, I think this one comes out in like October. So I don't want to say too much, but I'm loving the O'Malleys. This one, there's a bit of a like, it's not a captive because of the danger she's in. When he says she's going to be staying with him so he can keep an eye on her, she's here for it. She's like, nope, I want to be staying with the strong Irish man who's going to keep me safe from what's going on. There's some things about her and her sister's past that came out in the previous book, and we're dealing with those. Right. So this is forced proximity. This is enemies to lovers. And that's all that I can really say as I continue my journey with the Maggie Cole books. The next one to come out comes out July 1st. And that's going to be Adrian and Skylar, and I think you're really going to like that. I mean, if you're following the series, there, we'll just do that. Whatever, hair, do what you want. Do what you want. If you're following the series, you're going to keep following the series, and they're amazing. But I gave this one 4.5 stars. Again, a couple... My little quibbles are the same kind of from book to book that happen when you're binging a series the way that I have been blessed to be able to do. And so there's just a few things of like certain things being kept secret that were frustrating. And then our heroine, she's so honest about so many things. And then there was certain things she was keeping hidden. And I'm like, why? Just like tell everyone. This one does have trigger warnings for attempted suicide. And then like stalking, and it's not by the hero that is happening this time. So there's that, but I continue to love this series. Then I read Forbidden Promises by Katee Roberts. So, you know, I don't get away from the mafia no matter what I do. But this was actually on my TBR for June because Katee Roberts is writing the 2nd generation of the O'Malleys, and I'm not done with the O'Malleys. So I was like, girl, I need to get up on it. And so this is book 4, and this is about Sloane O'Malley, who in one of the previous books, her brother helped her run away. Sorry, the light's really bad, so I'll just show this. I'll try to hold it still. And so she's run away to this seaside town to try to start a new life. She becomes a waitress. She's staying in the house of a family friend. Well, it turns out that family friend, who is an older woman, she has a target on her back. And so our hero, Jude McNamara, is actually supposed to take out this person. So he's been eyeing up this house for a while now. He's been staying in this town, keeping to himself, which is hard to do in a small town. And he's pretending to be a writer. And then this young woman moves in next door. This is also an age gap. I believe she's 23 and he's like 35 or something like that. I think this one is. I mean, that's not really like the purpose of it. But he knows that he shouldn't mess with her. And once he finds out who she is and how she intertwines with his target, he really shouldn't get involved, but he's just really, really drawn into her. So, yeah, really enjoyed this book. I love Katee Roberts. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoy reading, you know, both her indie stuff and the things that she did with a publisher. And I love that she's going to be doing the 2nd generation of the kids. So I have 2 more books to read in this series. And I mean, I think the O'Malley one's not coming out until, I think she's putting it out in like August or September. So I have some time. Then I finished The Iron Duke by Meljean Brooks. So if you don't know, Meljean Brooks is, Miljean is a pen name for Meljean Brooks, I believe, is how it works. So she wrote some of my favorite fantasies ever. Now, I'll be honest, I don't have a ton to say about The Iron Duke because I was very confused for most of it. It's not in my wheelhouse. This is steampunk, and so that's like that Victorian, but it's like fantasy to like sci-fi, and there are people that are partially made of metal, and there's scary creatures, there's zombies. Like, this series had so much happening, and like my brain just couldn't handle it. But this was on I actually think I owned this one because I got it when it was on sale. Like, the book was free, and so then the audio upgrade was only $7, and so I did that. And it took me a while to listen to. So I gave this 3.5 stars. So take that with a grain of salt, because again, this was not within my wheelhouse. However, I did finish it because our hero, whose name is Reese, you'll see, I've read a couple books with a hero named Reese this week. He was obsessive about the heroine, and he was trying to coerce her to be with him in any way possible, beg, borrow, steal, coerce, and it was kind of delightful. I had a good time with it. So, you know, I'd be lying if I didn't say that that part was great. It was the fact that it was hard to know what was happening in all other aspects. And part of that's on me, right? Part of that's on me because this isn't my normal world to be reading about. But it was good. Like, the romance was good. And there was definitely setup for some other couples. But I know this Iron Seas series has, like, so many books. There's tons of novellas and short stories, and then there's like 3 or 4 books in the main series. So there's a whole bunch to go with this. I don't know if I'll continue the series because it was just not my comfort zone, but I'm glad I tried a steampunk novel. I do have also Kristen Callahan's steampunk series that I want to try, so I definitely will try more. And maybe by reading more of them, it's just like any subgenre of romance. The more of them you try, the more you know, the more that you find ones that work for you. So, yeah. Then, I read Real by Katee Ryan. If you saw my stories, which I tried to keep spoiler-free, you will know that this wrecked me. This was 6 stars. It's not even a question. It's my... I'm not sure yet if I like it more than Still, but it's at least tied with Still for my favorite Katee Ryan. And this will totally be on my favorites of the year, no question. And I was just so moved. I was so moved. I basically read this book all day at work, which I wasn't going to do. But I pre-ordered both the audiobook and the book. And so the audiobook came out day and date. I highly recommend the audiobook. It has Jacoby as the narrator for canon, and there is also parts of this book that are a script, and they're read by a different narrator, and then there's singing that happens in it, and it was such an experience. It was so beautiful. Like, it was so beautiful. So what is this book about? Because that's what's kind of vague. I'll try to keep spoilers out of this one, but I will put up spoilers when I tell you what the trigger warnings are, okay? So that's how I'm going to do this. I'll tell you what it's about. So we have our hero, Neva, who is an actress on Broadway, and when we first meet her, she's finally getting her chance to perform because she's been an understudy for a while, and the main actress is on vacation, and so it's her chance to perform. Then we have our hero, Cannon, who is a director, and he's recently just finished a documentary, and he likes to kind of switch it up between fictional and nonfiction, that he does. He does documentaries and other things. And not too far in his past, the last fictional story that he was telling, the last movie he was making, he was involved with one of his actresses. And it was the first time he was ever involved with an actress. And he realized that she was kind of a nasty person. And when he broke it off with her, she got him kicked off the movie. And so he's like, you know what? This is why I don't sleep with actresses. This is not a thing. So we have that already set up. He happens to go with his friend to see this performance because his friend had worked with Neva in a musical engagement before, and he's like, she's performing tonight and we're in town, let's go. And Cannon sees her and he realizes that Neva will be the perfect embodiment of the next, he's doing like a movie based on a true story type thing about a performer named Desi Blue who is all but forgotten. Like, he only found out about her because he was driving through this small town and he saw a sign that said the home of Desi Blue. And he was like, who's that? And then he found out. And so he's been wanting to make this movie for a long time, but he has the funding now, but he hasn't found the actress to play Desi because he needs the perfect woman. And then he sees Neva and he's like, that's it. So Neva's never been in a movie. She's only done, like stage work and things on the side. And they have this amazing connection. But Cannon is very clear where he wants her to fit. He wants her to be in his movie, so he has to shut down all these feelings. And Neva, she understands that to a degree, but she's also like, wow, this guy just hates me. So that's how she feels, but she's like, he's giving me this opportunity. I would be a fool not to take it. And then proceeds this slow burn of them, well, specifically of Cannon trying to keep himself apart from her, but they just have so many interests aligned, and there's some people conspiring to put them near to each other, and they just can't fight it. Like, it's just magnets being sucked in. Well, magnets were... whatever pulls people in, steel to a magnet. And it's absolutely beautiful, guys. Like, the writing and just the feeling and the way that it builds between them. Like, this is a slow burn, but once the spark starts, the fire just is going. And it's so gorgeous. I mean, my dear friend Crystal did a full vlog for this where it's a non-spoiler reading vlog. I'll link it in the card above. But the emotions that she expresses about the writing, she's much more articulate than I can be. Because you know me, like, I would want to go into full spoilers for this. But the steam in this, the adoration, this hero, he's a different kind of alpha than you've read before for Kennedy Ryan. He's less outwardly expressive in a lot of cases than I feel like, I think of Maxim and I think of Grip and I think of how they're always ready to jump to defense and they're ready to go. And I mean, that's canon too, but he's more of this like solid rock. He's a slow moving train until it's going and then you're swept up in it and nothing is going to tear it down. A couple like little things to say before I do the trigger warnings. This book, to me personally, had the least angst of any of Kennedy's books. However, the perceived angst that I had while reading it, and I've heard this from my friends who are reading it as well, because you've read other Kennedys, you are expecting certain pain. You are expecting certain doom to come. And that really, like, it didn't tint my enjoyment. My enjoyment was there the whole time, but it did, like, had my anxiety running very high and I was very anxious. And I'm not going to be able to change your mind about that. Like, you are going to see the potential roadblocks and the potential upsets, and you are going to be in that. Like, you will. But I will say, trust Kennedy Ryan, trust the HEA, and trust that I'm telling you, me personally, if you follow me and you know me, and you've seen my anxiety for Kennedy books in the past, like, I'm not afraid to rate her books lower because they drive me bonkers. This was a 6-star read for me. I cried tears of happiness. There was a few of pain, but it was mostly all the tears you saw in my Insta story were all from the beauty of this book. It was so beautiful. It just had me aching of like, this is what true love looks like and feels like. And there's also reconnection of a family, and there's sisterly bonds, and there is, you know, just growth of character. And it was also freaking 5 stars of just beautiful steaminess, because Kennedy Ryan don't pull her punches with that either. So now I'm going to do a spoiler, and I'm going to tell you what the trigger warnings are for this, because it's Kennedy Ryan, so there's still some of them. Most of the trigger warnings in this book deal with loss of a parent due to terminal illness, and terminal illness in general, and sickness. Of course, racism, and yeah, I think those are the ones. So some typical of Kennedy Ryan and others not. So this was beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Okay, moving on. Then I got to read an arc of Witches Get Stitches by Juliette Cross. This is available on NetGalley, and I believe that it's an auto-approved. So if you love the Stay a Spell series and you have a NetGalley account, you could try for this one. I don't know if that will always stay open like that. That can be changed based on like what they do, but I'm pretty sure that this is an auto-approved because, you know, Juliette wants to get the word out. So full disclosure, if you don't know, I'm a big fan of Juliette Cross. I'm a friend of Juliette Cross and Jesson, her niece, who I love, y'all. So like, just know that, like, it's colored, that I love these books and I love the person writing them. This book is about Nico, a werewolf, and Violet, one of the Savoy sisters. Violet is a seer and has some other minor powers. Nico is a werewolf who used to be part of kind of a gang type thing, and we've seen him in some previous books. And we know that he has kind of changed his ways in regards to some of that. And this is about Nico knowing that Violet is meant for him, and Violet, due to something she has seen or divined, believes that it will be to the destruction of both of them if they were to be together. So she's under this pretense, false or not, that there's a certain doom around whether her and Nico would be together. And so we start this book with a flashback to them when they're first meeting. And then we are in present time, where if you read Don't Hex and Drive, you know that Violet is opening a tattoo shop called Empress Ink, and Nico is going to be her business partner. So Nico has injected himself into her life in as many ways as possible, and he's waiting until he can get her to crack and realize that they're supposed to be together. So this is a friends to lovers, this is a pining romance, and it has all the wonderful hijinks of a Stay a Spell book by Juliette. It's wonderful. I gave this one 4.5 stars. There are a few things with the plot that I feel like could have been explored a little more fully. But I feel like you'll be very happy with the romance aspects of this. And I feel like that's the part most people are excited for. So you won't be disappointed in that aspect. There's just some things, and maybe it's just to my own expectations and things that I was expecting to see happen in the story that weren't exactly what I was hoping for. But Nico brings the heat, Violet brings the sass, and it is a good time for everyone. So I'm very excited. This book comes out in July, and I cannot wait for y'all to get your hands on it, because number one, it's beautiful. And number two, I love this woman so much, and I'm happy to support her books and to talk about them. And we will actually be talking more about Stay a Spell in a moment. Then I read The Highwayman's Folly by Daria, Vernon. Guys, I am so excited to talk about this. I've already talked about it in 2 videos that I filmed. That one of them went up the other day and this other one will be going up soon. This is a book that I literally think I saw from an Amazon ad, and I maybe saw someone post about it on Booktube, on Bookstagram. But I did not know, number one, the author is a Bookstagrammer, so check her out. And this is her first book, guys, and it's fucking amazing. I gave this book 5 stars. This was in my, I think it was one that got pulled out of my TBR tin. I can't remember what the prompt was for this one. But then I actually did a buddy read with my friend Jo. She used to have a channel a long time ago, but she doesn't anymore. And we haven't done a buddy read in a long time. And so I was like, hey, watch my TBR. Tell me what you want to read with me. I would love to read one of these with you. So this doesn't have an audiobook, so I had to read it physically, but of course it's on Kindle. You can read it there. And this book was awesome. It was so good. I gave it 5 stars, and it's about this girl named Beth who is 30 years old. Her aunt has died and just left her some money, and she gets kidnapped by one of, I can't remember, like, I always mess this part up, but he had a connection to her aunt somehow, and he's going to, like, force her to elope with him. Like, he's going to ruin her reputation and force her to marry him. Well, on his way to do that, the carriage that they're in gets attacked by highwaymen who are robbing people, and this coach is too nice for them to pass up. And so now she's tied up in this carriage, and so they realize she has been tied up, and they're like, wow, what are they trying to do with this girl? Maybe she's worth some money for us. So now she's went from being kidnapped by this sleazy guy connected with her aunt to being kidnapped by these highwaymen. But one of these highwaymen is Reese Booker, who he has some past in that's a bit dubious, that has forced him to be a highwayman to actually try to make amends, which sounds weird, but he's basically trying to earn money to make amends for something wrong that he did in the past. And when he comes face to face with Beth, he is immediately protective of her, and he immediately realizes that she's more than he ever imagined. She is fierce, she's a fighter, she isn't going to go down with a fight, and that causes her to become injured. So they take her back to their lair, which is called the Folly. So that's where the Highwayman's Folly comes from, it is this highwayman's secret hideout. And while they're there, they have this kind of magical night, even though it's like she's a captive, he's seen to her injuries, and they just talk, and there's this spark between them, and the things that Reese is thinking about her in his head, I was in awe of just how much he could see her and realize, like, how amazing this woman was. So pretty quickly, Reese is like, I don't want to use her for money. I want to protect her. I want to take care of her. So that happens in the past, actually. And they have this amazing connection. It's an adventure. It's amazing, actually. And then this book has a time jump. And I'm telling you because it's one of my pet peeves. I've talked about this recently. It's one of my pet peeves. But the way that this story is set up and the way that things are happening, there's no way that there could have been an HEA just in the current timeline. Like, there needs to be a time jump for some certain things to happen and for Reese to make something of himself. And so there's this time jump for a certain amount of time. And when we all come back into the present time and they meet again, it becomes clear that Reese has been up to some things in the past years. And I don't want to spoil those. But those plans and those things he's been up to blew my mind. This book was so romantic. It's written so richly. Like, that's the thing with me lately is, like, I don't always notice how a book is written. Like, that's not where my enjoyment of a book always comes from. If it's written poorly, I notice, of course. But in general, the words on the page, are a vehicle for me to imagine what's happening. But when the writing of a story is so elegant and beautiful that I do notice, I can't help but be And it's not that it's like overly flowery, but it's almost written in this cadence that's kind of poetic. And oh, I just loved it. And Reese, he is a cinnamon roll. He is a squishy, lovable man who becomes so gone for this woman that he's willing to change so much about himself and things that need to change. Like, it's not just like, oh, you're changing everything for a woman, whatever. There are things that need to change. He's a highwayman on the wrong side of the law. There's some things that need to change if he can have this woman. But the things he's willing to do and the changes that he does make so that he can be worthy of her and so that he can present his best possible case to her in hopes that she will accept him are amazing. Also, something I want to comment on, because recently, you know, I read some historicals that are trying to show feminism in a certain light, you know. The things that Beth goes through and the way that she's being scrutinized for things that aren't under her control, and then the way that she reacts to them and the way that she presents herself with dignity and doesn't think less of herself because of things that weren't her fault. To me, it was this quiet kind of feminism that I don't think many authors have the skill to present in the same way that Daria Vernon has done. I was very impressed. There is another book. So apparently my friend said there's a peek at the next book in her Kindle version. I didn't have that at the end of mine. It just tells me that the next book is The Rogue's Last Letter, because this series is called The Rewards of Ruin. I don't know when a set date is for it or what, but I do know that I want it. I know the couple that it is about, and I want it. So this was 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. Then I read a little quickie, Ruthless Gentleman by Louise Bay. I'd actually already read the second book in this series before, but I hadn't read this one. I really enjoy Louise Bay. She's kind of in a quick little escape that I will listen to one of the audiobooks. A lot of them were on the Audible Plus program, but this is one that it was only $7.50, so I like bought it for cheap, right? So this one is about luxury yachts again. The second one, the other one was about that too. And we have this businessman, I think his name is Hayden. I can't remember. I could be mixing that with another story, but he has been being foiled in his business dealings for the last few things, and it's causing him to maybe going to lose his business. And so he hires this luxury yacht for 8 weeks, and he is planning to not let anyone else on board except certain crew that have been vetted, and try to get this business deal done from seclusion and find out who has been the spy in his organization so that he can stop that from happening. And so then our heroine is the head hostess for this luxury yacht, and she does this work because she has a brother and a dad who need the money. And so she has worked a long season, and then she gets asked to do this on the off season, so she's not going to have a break, but it's going to make her a lot of money, so she agrees to do it. So this is a, you know, forbidden kind of romance because it's like employer and employee. This is narrated by Shane East, and I can't remember who the female narrator is, but Shane East does all of Louise Bay's books, and so, you know, there's that. So I gave this 4 stars. It was a great read, and I had a good time. Then I got to listen to the audiobook for Don't Hex and Drive. I got to read an arc of this, or listen to an arc of this. The Stay a Spell books are being done by Podium Audio, and so it is the same narrators as Wolf Gone Wild. So it is Aiden Snow, who he does wonderful, deep, growly voices for these males. It's wonderful. And the heroine is Julia Fairview, Julia Fairview, I think. So I freaking love this. Again, of course, the audio was amazing. I feel like the female narrator did a good job with Devraj's accent. It wasn't too overdone or cheesy in any way. If you don't know what this one is about, this is, you know, another in the Stay a Spell series. This is about Isadora Savoy, who is very, like, connected with nature. I mean, most of the witches in this are, but she has a greenhouse and she takes care of pets, and she's actually a conduit, so she can, like, feed her energy into living things, which is amazing. And then we have Devraj Kumar, who is an ex-Bollywood actor and a vampire, and he is also what is called a Stygorn. So he's a vampire warrior who can like take down like criminals within the paranormal world, and he's brought to town because there are these young women who are going missing, and they're being used in an illegal blood trade. And so Devraj gets asked to come to town, and he ends up buying the house next to the Savoys. After he meets Isadora, the first night he's in town, he hits her bike with his Lamborghini. And so that doesn't start them off on the best foot. But this book is spicy, and the audiobook was amazing. It was 5 out of 5. I had a great time returning to this book. And again, I can't wait for Witches Get Stitches to be an audio. And I'm so excited for just the rest of this series. Oh, they're so good. I love it. And these books are all ones that I finished yesterday. I read Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. This is the Rake Appreciation Society pick for June. Our live show is going to be this coming Thursday on Crystal's Bookish Life. I believe this is Crystal's favorite historical romance. I believe that's what she's told me. And when I said, let's do a Beverly Jenkins in June, I was like, you can pick. We can do one you've read before, or we can do one that we both read together. And she was like, I'd really love us to do my favorite. And I was like, okay, I'm in. I have been hesitant to start Beverly Jenkins. It's not that I've heard mixed things, but I've heard intense things, and I've just been nervous, you know, like I'm not going to hide about it. I've been afraid that either I wouldn't like it as much as everyone else does, or I would like it and then my opinion wouldn't matter. Like there are varying feelings you feel when you are someone in the public eye reading a book that's very beloved by people. I was nervous about it, but I shouldn't have worried. I started with the audiobook because I got the audiobook when Audible had a $5 sale. And then, as I said, I had a lot of travel yesterday for a birthday party. And so my sister was driving, and I actually read the second half of this physically. And just, wow. I don't know what I was expecting. I've heard that she's not always like really steamy or whatever. And not that that needs to be the main purpose, but like this is still a romance, and like it blew my socks off. This was a 5-star read. It was so beautiful. If you don't know, this is about Hester Wyatt, who escaped slavery, and now she lives in Michigan, and she's a conductor for the Underground Railroad. And at the beginning of this book, our hero is injured and beaten, and his name is Gallon, but his code name is the Black Daniel, and he's actually this really wealthy mixed race like business, like he's very wealthy, but he helps slaves get to freedom on his downtime. Like he does it for a certain part of every year. He will help people escape to the north, and they've been betrayed, and so he's beaten and injured. He barely escaped with his life, and so he gets brought to Hester to stay in her storeroom where she keeps the runaway slaves, or people that they're freeing, and she helps heal him back to life. And they have this very antagonistic relationship in the beginning, and it's just amazing to watch them both kind of soften to each other. You know, Gallon is really in awe by this young woman who puts herself in danger all the time, and is so smart and kind and calm and beautiful, and he's just really in awe with her. So he stays with her for a certain amount of time in the beginning of this book, and then he has to leave, and she's like, well, I'm never going to see him again. Well, Gallon buys the big house next to where she lives that borders up against her land, and he reinterjects himself into the life of this town and into Hester's life. And Hester just sees him as so far above her, and Gallon does everything possible to show that not only is it not a matter of like, I'm above you, it's a matter of I love you and I will be devoted to you for the rest of my life. It is so romantic. Hester doesn't believe that marrying for love is a good idea. So at the beginning of this book, she actually has a fiance. Don't worry. Well, I guess there could be, because she definitely does kiss Gallon before we find out about what's going on with this fiance. But I promise you won't feel like there's cheating. Like, I promise you won't. It's not that kind of story. But Hester's father was a free man, and he actually sold himself into slavery so that he could marry Hester's mother. But then when that master who had, you know, let him sell himself, I don't know how to say that, how the words work, died, the son sold them off and actually sold Hester as a baby off. And she wasn't freed until later in her life, and she's never seen her parents. But she's always been like, if love would make you do something so foolish as to give up your freedom, then I want no part of it. But Galen is going to show her differently. Guys, this book was so romantic. I can't even. It was so romantic and beautiful and just delightful. And I'm definitely excited to read more Beverly Jenkins after this. I cannot wait to gush about it on Thursday. I hope you will come. Yeah, this was wonderful. Galen is going on my book boyfriends list. Like, I just did an updated book boyfriends list, and I'm adding him, as well as the last book that I read. Well, okay, quick. I DNF'd a book called The Chimera Affair by Kiera Andrews. It just wasn't working for me. This one was on my TBR. This is a male spy romance, and it's just not working for me. Boom. Let's move that out of the way. Because the last book that I read, which I finished last night, is Lessons in Sin by Pam Godwin. I didn't think I was getting an ARC for this book. I did apply for it. Of course I applied for it when she had the ARC signups available. But I was seeing other people reading it already, and I didn't get it. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I didn't get it. Well, I did. I got it Friday, and I was like, oh my God, I just want to read this. And I did read the first 20% of it at work. And then on Friday night, when I got to my sister's house, I read a bunch more of it, and then I stopped because I was like, I don't want to finish this right now. I need to think about it. So I finished it last night. Okay, couple things. This book isn't out yet. It comes out June 29th, so I don't want to say too much. Something that I do want to say, and something that you could do leading up to that, I believe someone told me about this. But I wasn't paying attention, or I didn't really understand what they meant. But Dangerous Press, the indie publisher who is going to be releasing Lessons in Sin, they have what is called the Midnight Dynasty. And that is books by certain authors under their press are all connected. They're the Winston and the Morelli family. And I actually own a bunch of these. And they are by Dangerous Press. And they are about different Winston siblings, okay? And I'll tell you why I'm telling you this in a minute. So there is Heartless and Soulless, which is about Elaine Constantine, and it doesn't say the hero's name, but I believe he's a Morelli. Here, there is Wicked Idol by Becker Gray, which this was actually given to me as a gift, so I own it right now. And this is about Iris and I think it's Keaton Constantine, which is one of the brothers. And then the Cinderella series, Stroke of Midnight, Prince Charming, and then I'm currently reading The Glass Slipper, is about Winston Constantine, who's the oldest brother. And now Lessons in Sin is about Tinsley Constantine, who's the youngest and is 18 and is sent to a Catholic boarding school in Maine so that her mother can keep her pure and prepared for an arranged marriage that is going to happen when she graduates high school. So she is being forcibly put under the care of Magnus Falk, who is the priest and headmaster and teacher at this school. He is known for his strictness and for having ship-shaped up this boarding school for young women. And when Tinsley's mother had, the bodyguard had found her fooling around with a boy, her mom is like, we're not fucking around. We have plans for you, and you're not going to ruin them by fucking around as a teenager. And Tinsley has a genius level IQ. She's not going to be allowed to use it. She's not going to be allowed to go to college. She is supposed to finish high school and then get married and do this. And Magnus is going to make that happen. At least that's what he thinks. This book, okay, so I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm debating whether I want to do a full spoiler review to come out when the book comes out. I don't know how many, the thing is that I don't know how many people would like want that, because not everyone on my channel is like reading Pam Godwin. Not everyone's going to run and read this. But the reasons why I'm going to say this, normally I would tell you the trigger warnings so you can know. There aren't really any trigger warnings for this book. I know. I'm surprised as well. But when I was talking through this book with some of my friends last night, I was like, guys, there aren't really any trigger warnings. Neither of our characters have a traumatic past. I mean, our hero, so this is obviously an age gap taboo, because just given the setting, Tinsley's 18, Magnus is 40. He's a priest. He's her teacher, an authority figure. You know, it has all those taboo elements coming into it, but neither of them really have a traumatic past at all. There aren't anything super traumatic that happens during the book. So I really am struggling to like tell you if there's anything to watch out for. I mean, obviously, if you are Catholic or you're sensitive to sacrilege against the Catholic religion, like maybe don't read it. This does have some aspects that are defiling to the church, so like know that. But our hero, it's not the same as like Priest by Sierra Simone. That's the point. Like, it's not that same level of angst. There's angst because situational, and it's taboo because of literally the setup. I've told you the taboos by telling you the setup of the book. But really, I was just in awe of this story and watching these two people and like the games they're playing with each other, because Tinsley's goal is to go home. She does not want to be at this school. She's being forced into all these things. And so the only way out is to get expelled. And the only way to get expelled that will work is if she seduces Magnus. So that's kind of our setup, is he refuses to be seduced. She's not even his type. He likes older women. He likes to, you know, be physically, I don't want to say abused, but like his kink is like degradation and humiliation and all that stuff that can come with that. So he's not interested in young women. You know, that's part of the reason why he's in this role that he is he's not tempted by these young women throwing themselves at him, because they do, because he's hot. They throw themselves at him. But they are two people with exact opposite goals who are going at it. Like, the way, it was brilliant. I won't say anymore. But like I said, as I did, like, for real, you know, I put up a spoiler card. I'm like, these are there isn't really anything. Besides the religious elements that you need to decide if you're willing to try this, there is a trigger warning for perceived harm to an animal. And I hesitated to say that because listen to the words, perceived harm to an animal. Okay? I don't want to spoil anything, but like, I'll tell you that because there's a certain part of the book where you think something has happened. Okay? Okay. All right. Oh, in case you didn't know, I gave this book 6 stars. I loved it. I loved it. And okay, Sea of Ruins, my favorite Pam Godwin. But this was amazing. Like, the way that this one's written, the feelings that it made me feel, and then the finale of this book when our hero just, it was so good. So you'll have to let me know. I don't know if I would film a whole video separate for it, but if enough people wanted me to, I could do a spoiler review for Lessons in Sin to come out when it comes out. So let me know. because honestly, as soon as I finished this book, I wanted to read it again. So I'm going to content myself with finishing the books in these series that I haven't read, because I haven't read the third book in this series. I started the third book in this series last night as soon as I finished it, and I haven't read Wicked Idol. And then there's one other one, which I can't remember right now, that is about the villain of this series. So it's about the Morellis that I definitely want to check out. So there you go. I talked too long as usual, but I had a lot of wonderful books this week. I'm just thrilled. Some of these were fantastic. Make sure you join us for the Indigo live show if you want to chat and hear more about that. And yeah, thank you so much to my channel members for your support. Thank you guys for still always coming around week after week. It's amazing. So thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see some more videos, you can do that right now.